This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
On this episode of Mantha Milk Podcast, Around the Dejarik Table, 2 new guests, 4 new questions. Here we go.
Intro music.
Feels no good to be dead.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession, but nothing like podcasting, right? Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mantha Milk Presents Around the Dejarik Table, a roundtable discussion discussing the greatest movie and TV series of all time, Star Wars. Each episode, we invite 2 new friends to the show to come on with questions, and we all discuss each of the 4 questions. I'm your host, Rob, and every episode I'm joined by my co-host, Tom. Hello, Thomas.
Hello, Robert. I'm still waiting for my first paycheck from the first 4 shows.
All right. Well,
so I'll be checking my mail every day.
You keep waiting for that, and
Okay, I will.
When it comes, let me know, because mine has yet to come, and we've been doing the regular podcast for many years now. We are joined by 2 very special guests today, a father-daughter combo. Boom, boom, look at that. 2 separate podcasts, 2 separate people. I don't know where I'm going. But anyway, first we have Mike from the Inflatable Falcon podcast. Mike, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Mike from the Inflatable Falcon podcast. Also known to the Star Wars people around here as Zoe Hinton and Safi Hinton's chauffeur and father. When they were little, they were like, who's bringing the Jawas? But then I've been a Star Wars fan my entire life since I saw it in 1977. I've raised my kids with all the Star Wars principles I could pack into raising 2 children. And then I've helped Zoe become Sabine and my other daughter Saffron become 000. So if I'm not doing a podcast, I'm usually building something. That's me.
That's awesome.
In a Star Wars nutshell.
You're also in the 501st, which is very excellent.
Yes, I'm a stormtrooper in the 501st since 2007.
That's so cool. You build a lot of things. There's, for anybody who can watch on the YouTube, there's all kinds of stuff behind them. Did you build all those helmets back there?
Some like all the Sabines except for this one I painted. That one came from Dianovos.
Okay.
And then I mold and cast, but I don't do those. And then these are Hasbro helmets. But okay. Yes, I make and paint, and I've made an entire protocol droid of 000, which is probably the longest. That took 14 months to build.
That's awesome. I always wanted to. I see the people who have built the giant droids and always at conventions and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so awesome. I would love to have the patience and the just oomph to do all of that, because it's awesome and it's so cool. And I love anybody who does takes their Star Warsing to the next level. And speaking of taking the Star Warsing to the next level, that's our second guest, Zoe. So tell us, please, Star Wars Geek Girl podcast. Let me tell you, I'm very impressed. We've had some pretty famous people on the show, I will admit, and you are up there with the top of the top. So go ahead, tell us all about yourself, Zoe. Go ahead.
Well, I'm Zoe. I host the Star Wars Geek Girl podcast with Lizzie, and I'm 22 now. She's almost 22. She keeps making fun of me until she'll turn 22. We started the podcast when we were 14 back in 2015. Before that, I was in this fight since I was 6 years old. Well, Cassian quote. The fight being trooping. I was a Jawa, trooping with the Galactic Academy for the 501st. My Galactic Academy number was 00098. So got it on the ground floor pretty much.
That's awesome.
So I was a Jawa, and as I got, a little past Jawa height, not as much as I wanted to necessarily, but I got into Sabine costumes. And so now I'm the Mandalorian Mercs and Rebel Legion. I also got Ahsoka, all sorts of stuff. But yeah, I've been podcasting since 2015, so through all the movies that have come out, through most of the shows, these seasons of shows that have come out recently, and I was trying to focus on spreading positivity and appreciating the galaxy far, far away. And I
That's
use
awesome.
Star Wars to inspire me creatively. You can sort of see if you're watching on YouTube. I've got Sabine paintings. I just paint my walls. Like that was my COVID project, is painting Sabine stuff on my walls. And creating all sorts of things, and to encourage me every day.
That's awesome. That's so much fun. I'm very happy that you were able to join us, both of you. This is going to be a fun show. As you know, we have 4 questions. Each one of us thought very hard, long and hard on very awesome, the most awesome of questions that we could come up with. I wanted to use the word awesome as many times in one sentence, and I did a pretty good job there. So we all have, I was impressed. When I'm looking at these questions, every week I feel like every person who joins us is taking it up another notch and another notch. Before you know it, the questions are going to be so hard to even figure out an answer to. There's only going to be one correct answer. By the way, as I tell all of our guests, the only correct answer is my answer. So just as long as you know that, we can all agree on that. We'll be very happy. So let's jump right into it, shall we?
Yeah.
All right, sounds good. So I'll start off this week with the first question. So the Force has changed over the years. We went from it being an almost aura around people to the select few to the good old Midi-chlorian conversation from the prequels, all the way to Broom Boy, where, oh, look, another person, to now it's something that anybody can learn, apparently, if they try hard enough. So which is right, or more specifically, which theory do you like best? Because I don't know if there is a right answer to this, but which of these is your favorite theory? So, Mike, go ahead. You get to answer this hard question first, and then we can all disagree with you.
Okay. Well, yeah, this was one of those ones where, so I think back of Obi-Wan talking to Luke and how it surrounds us, and maybe the aura, but but to me that doesn't negate any of the other theories. Like I was one of those people, I didn't mind the midi-chlorians. My opinion is it surrounds us all, and what makes it really cool about it, if everyone has it, then only those who know how to use it right have the power. And my only disagreement with the Force, I love everything Star Wars doing, is I do wish, spoiler for those that didn't see Ahsoka, I wish when Sabine pulled the lightsaber to her, she would have used a Mando gauntlet.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
That's my only gripe. But I do like that everyone can tap into that potential.
Yeah.
So I know there's a lot of people my age that really didn't like Broom Boy, but I didn't mind Broom Boy either.
I didn't mind Broom Boy either, no.
All right, Zoe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to the very first thing we learned about the Force in A New Hope was that it surrounds all of us, and it is in every creature, every living organism. Then, some people are going to be more naturally adept to it, like your Luke Skywalkers, your Reys, whether that's genetics or even just people who randomly got chosen to have the Force, like your Ezras or your Obi-Wans, don't have that genetic predisposition. But that doesn't mean it's not within all the other people. I personally really like Chirrut, was to me a great example of someone who wasn't that natural Force sensitive, who wasn't, didn't have it inherently powerfully in him, but was still able to learn and train to connect with it, even if he wasn't, throwing stuff around. And then I think, with Sabine, personally I would have like to see her maybe go a more non-traditional route of maybe being a Jedi without using the Force as powerfully as she did, but I appreciate the intent of, it's like, if the Force is within everyone, then why can't everyone use it, even if it just takes a lot more work for some people than others, and Sabine, even though we only saw 8 episodes of the show, they told us, Sabine had trained for years and years with Ahsoka and only just now was able to connect with it in that really dire moment. for the first time. So
And to add to your point, there's so many different facets of the Force that every single Force user is going to use it differently.
Mhm.
So it doesn't all have to be used the same way.
Yeah, and I think we see that with, like, you know, if you're Quinlan Voss and Cal Kestis, who, like, are naturally good at psychometry, you know, and, like, Grogu, who just has a natural knack for force healing, even though it took Rey and Ben a while to, like, figure that out, you know, so.
I don't know who
Interesting.
raised this nerd.
Well, Tom, what did you think?
So I'm kind of with the two of you that, I wasn't a total fan of the midi-chlorian idea, but I like the fact that it's mysterious. No one knows. I mean, the Force is all around us, but not everyone's in tune to the Force. So I'm kind of like a mix of all three of the things that Rob talked about. So I do like that family heritage does matter, kind of like the Skywalkers. But there's no guarantee that every family member will be in tune with that Force. I like that bloodlines matter. Whether that relates to midi-chlorians or not, like genetics, I don't know the answer to that. So that even somebody like Broom Boy, I guess, could be a Jedi, because it's just, you never know. He obviously was in tune with the Force, but I don't even know if he knew he had it. He just instinctively could do things that Jedis could do. So I'm kind of like I'm torn on this. I think it's just a mix of everything that Rob talked about. It's just a little bit of everything.
What if Broom Boy is just a good janitor?
Or a magician. He actually had like
or a
that
magician.
thing in there. He was just,
Oh,
pretending.
like Haja in Obi-Wan Kenobi. He just has all the magnets and everything everywhere.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not really a Jedi. And that was fun when I just rewatched the Obi-Wan Kenobi series over the weekend. And it was fun when he was like, yeah, you got magnets here, there, there. And he's like, oh, no, don't hurt me. But yeah, it would be like that. All right. So now for the real answer.
I wish I knew that was coming.
You know it was coming. I also did not mind Broom Boy at all, because I liked the fact that, the Empire was trying to get rid of all the Jedi. They were wiping them all out. And, oh, look, they didn't. You can't wipe it out because the Force is around everybody, that somebody else is going to start to learn how to use it. So I did like that. I did note that, in my opinion anyway, I feel like the midi-chlorian theory came about in a time when science was talking about nanobots and stuff. So they were like, oh, maybe, I can see where George Lucas might have been thinking like, oh, nanobots, midi-chlorians will do this. But then even with Grogu in the first season of The Mandalorian, they were talking about his M counts being so high. So that leaning back again to the midi-chlorian theory, but then also the aura and all the stuff. Nick, my co-host of the regular show, loves the fact that Sabine is now learning how to use the Force and proving that anybody who tries hard enough can become a Jedi, or at least a Force user. And we also have the other people like the Night Sisters and all that, who are able to use the Force in different ways, not necessarily the way a Jedi can. Or who was the blind guy? He was Force sensitive as well.
Chira, who Zoe was talking about.
Yeah. So like how he can use it in different ways as well. So I wanted to talk myself out of liking the anybody can be a Force user, but I think I'm actually talking myself into liking it. Because the way Nick explains it, it's like a professional football player in elementary school. Millions of kids in America play football, but by the time you get to the professional level, there's only 42 people on 30 teams, so there's only 300 and whatever professional football players out of the millions that start. So why can't it be the same thing with the Force, where everybody has the potential? You just have to want to work hard enough. Or some football players, like you see the quarterbacks who can throw the ball 80 yards without even like trying. you hear stories of them when they were in elementary school. They were throwing at 60 yards in 5th grade, where all the other kids could barely throw at 10. So that could be your Skywalkers who are just more naturally in tune to it.
But
So
does that take the mystery out of the Force?
yeah,
That'd be my problem with it. Like, as a kid growing up, I love that the Force was this mysterious thing that nobody really knew what it was or how to describe it. And I think if you made it to where, you just work hard and you've got it, I think that takes the mystery away.
See, I always thought of it more like magic. Like, at the same time I was in the Star Wars, I was into Dungeons and Dragons. So I was like getting beat up by everybody, back then. But what was nice about D&D was they had you have magic that people just could control. And so that it comes down to like your dogma. Like, you have your Jedi who weren't 100% right, or
Right.
you have your Sith who weren't 100% right, and then you have your Night Sisters. Like, it's almost like it's free for the taking. If you just, it kind of, the sports analogy goes really well, in the sense that, I mean, I see it in my job. Every kid wants to be a football player until they have to go to football practice.
Right. Or even, when football practice is over, that they have to do a little bit more work. I'd just rather go home and, watch TikTok instead, So yeah, I agree with that. And that's where the people who become the Force users are like, okay, I just had Force practice. Now I'm going to actually practice on my own. So,
and I think the Midi-chlorians was one of those things that was easy. I think they were trying to put something in the movie that Qui-Gon could pick out, for like something he could pick Anakin out. Like, if they would have probably even changed a different word, like if they would have said M count, it probably wouldn't have had the same taste in some people's mouths as Midi-chlorians did.
Right, exactly. Which is why I think when they did it with Grogu, they were like, let's try to change it, still keep it, but change it and see how people feel about it. And I think it did have a different effect on people, because it wasn't midi-chlorians. So yeah, all right. Well, I guess it's still up for debate, but I think we came to a pretty good conclusion there. All right, Mike, it's your turn to ask your question.
All right. This was a lot of pressure on me over the weekend. So
I bet it was.
It said, if there was an in-universe nature show similar to Croc Hunter, who would you want to be the host in universe host? And where would you want the first episode to take place? So, Zoe, you've heard me talk about this question a few times. What do you think?
Well, first, I do have to flex a little nerd knowledge. There is an in-universe nature show. It's hosted by SFR3 from the Star Wars Kids channel, and he was in Young Jedi Adventures. So I do have to flex that before I say my answer.
Question's over now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll hang up my...
I would actually go with...
This is a time when we dance.
This is
never mind.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened there. I apologize. Go ahead, Zoe.
I would actually want to say Boba Fett, because I really enjoyed in the Book of Boba Fett his interactions with like animals and creatures, whether it was like the lizard that went up his nose or the banthas or his rancor. I really enjoyed
old Boba, right? Old Boba. That's who you'd want rather than younger Boba. Okay.
Oh yeah, old Boba. I thought all those interactions were really fun. And he like had this kind of, especially with the rancor, this like kind of awe and respect for it that I think would translate well to like a very like Steve Irwin-ish kind of thing. And also I just love old Tamara Morrison's voice. It's like very soothing. He's a great voice. And I guess I wanted to start probably on Tatooine, start at the source. But I will say my second choice would probably be Ezra Bridger, starting on Lothal.
Okay. I like it. There's some good answers there.
Tom, what do you think?
Good choice. Ezra was in my top 3 when I was thinking about this question. But I think I'd have to go with Yoda. Now, you have to stay with me. Not episodes 1 through 3 Yoda. Empire Strikes Back Yoda when Luke first arrived at the planet, the goofy, silly Yoda. That and it's going to totally be a kid show. That's the kind of show that I'd want to see. Even though it's a kid show, I'm like a big kid. I'd want to see that kind of goofy Yoda talking about the animals. I was thinking a good place to start might be Dagobah, because he would obviously, he lived there so long. But I thought of a better place, and playing Star Wars Galaxies made me think of this place. The first episode is going to be the creatures of Dathomir, where everything wants to kill you.
Like Australia, Star Wars Australia.
Yeah.
Dathomir is the Australia of the Star Wars universe.
That's it.
So that would be my choice. Rob, what do you think?
All right, so I went a little bit different, and I made sure I put it in so nobody would steal my answer. And so far, you guys haven't. I like that. I first off, I thought Lando because he's, and I want to see like a old David Letterman stupid pet tricks, or even I wrote it down, Brian Fellows from SNL. If you saw Brian Fellows, he was an animal lover, but he knew nothing about any of the animals whatsoever. And that was the whole funny part about it. He's like, why is that raccoon looking at me? What's that raccoon want? Why? Tell him to stop looking at me. But I want to see like Lando, because he's so like cool and whatever, but totally the way Dave Letterman hated doing stupid pet tricks, and hated, especially when they're animals, so they're not going to do the right thing. But when they were doing the wrong thing, he would just get so angry. And I can see Lando doing the same thing. And like, we're going to have a Rancor that can do a backflip. And then when it just like lays down, he'll be like, come on, like, this is our show here, whatever. So that's what I was thinking. You were going to say something, Mike?
No. When I read yours this morning, or whenever I read it, I was thinking of when Johnny Carson used to have the animals, and it would always go horribly wrong.
Yeah,
that really dates me, but
yeah, and that was awesome as well. Like I remember that and he would like always sit back from his desk and be like, "Whoa, what's going on?" Or when the animals, of course, they're always like pooping all over the stage, and he's like, he's like throwing a fit or whatever. Yes. So I want to see that. And it doesn't have to be on a planet because, it's a stupid pet trick type of thing. So they're going to bring the animals to them. So it could be done in the void or the volume. I think it's called the volume. So just be this just big sound stage, whatever. And I think it would crush on Star Wars television, on Star Wars channel 1, kind of like BBC One, or just like crush. It would just be perfect.
Rob, so about Lando, I totally see Lando doing that show, but you have Lando as like a David Letterman, like he's always kind of like grouchy about the animals or whatever and things going wrong. I see Lando as I've always seen Lando as like a cheap car salesman. He's always trying to sell you something. So I can totally see him with that weird personality, almost like he's trying to sell you these animals.
Yeah,
like trying to sell you what's great about these animals. And I can totally see Lando doing that. I think it's a really good choice.
Doing that as well. Yeah, I think that's awesome.
The Space Home Shopping Network.
Yes. Lando would be great at that.
At 5:00 every day, it would be capes from around the galaxy.
Yeah. He'd have a cape for every animal.
He would. He would have a different. All right, Mike, it's your question. You're the last one to go, so I hope yours is a showstopper. Here we go.
Well, I don't know if mine's a showstopper because when I wrote the question, Zoe's heard me say this before. I always like Hondo.
Okay.
So I was thinking Hondo, and then I changed my mind because I was looking at old pictures of New Hope, and I went to Boshek, the guy from the bar that he's just like long sideburn looking. He looks like, and I pictured it, my mind started wandering, and I pictured Boshek having a crew of like Jawas and doing all these shows, starting at Tatooine, and every show, some of his Jawas get eaten by whatever, like he's talking about the Sarlacc, and behind him, he's not watching, like Jawas are slipping in, the sound man's going down the tube, they're talking about banthas and the Jawas getting run over
by one. Oh, yeah. That's so funny. That is like a carnival, like gone bad every single time.
Right, and he's not aware of it.
And he's not aware of it.
He's just like, oh, and look at the majestic banthas, and then you see it like two of his little Jawas with boom mics and stuff just get like trampled.
It sounds like the Muppet Show from when we were younger.
Yeah.
Where everything would just go wrong.
Just going wrong every time. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great one as well. I like that a lot.
Then I would start mine at Tatooine. Tatooine, it's if there's a question about a planet, Tatooine is almost always my first answer. Yeah. me and the girls went to Death Valley to see some of the locations.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's made it even better.
I bet.
Yeah, we have sand from there. I don't know if that.
Oh, even cooler. That's awesome.
And we got to overlook Mos Eisley. So if you go to Dante's, what is it called? Dante's something peak.
Dante's View. Dante's
I don't know.
Peak or something.
And it looks like even without the buildings superimposed, just because of the sand and the color, it looks like it's right there.
That's so cool. That is very.
And it was 125 degrees.
But it was a dry heat, so it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't humid.
It wasn't humid.
No, but if you had your phone out for more than 5 minutes, it would burn you.
It'd light up and be like, it's too hot.
Yeah.
That's really funny. Yeah, I love when people are like, yeah, but it's a dry heat, not like out here. I'm like, when it's 125 degrees, I don't care how dry it is. It's still 125 degrees.
Oh, it was, we went through a case of water in the day we drove around, and we barely got out of the van. Just even running the air conditioning.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And it's like Death Valley's the size of Connecticut, so you can't go see it all.
Right.
I would recommend go to the Star Wars locations. Right, Zoe?
Yeah, definitely. There's it's like an ancient article on StarWars.com you have to dig for, but they have an article and it's a map that'll take you through all the locations that were shot there, and it's marked. Just make sure you download it on your phone because you will not have service in Death Valley.
Yeah.
So make sure you download it and take all your screenshots or whatever you need before you get.
I mean they haven't put up a whole bunch of cell towers all around Death Valley to increase reception?
I don't think they do.
Unfortunately, no.
All right, Zoe.
I thought I had read a story or just seen a story from it wasn't Dave Filoni, and I always forget his name. Who's the other guy?
Jon Favreau?
Favreau, yeah, Jon Favreau. He was telling the story that when they went to redo some scenes, they couldn't find the location of the original New Hope. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, they probably should have looked on the article. They need Zoe.
and they had to go back to some old like article or something that wrote about exactly where the location was in order to find the location. They couldn't find it.
Yeah, we found the washout from where Jabba's palace is, where the R2 and 3PO go up. We found that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
some of them, like you had to be looking the exact right way with your head tilted the right way. You know,
if you're this way, it doesn't look like it. Oh, okay.
I mean, the easy ones were the Jabba's palace and the overlook of Mos Eisley. Those you knew exactly what you're looking at. The other ones, you kind of just like, yeah, I guess that's right.
So it was the same guy that went over there and found all these locations, wasn't it? Right. Because George Lucas never documented exactly where these locations were.
Yeah, I don't know, because in Death Valley, I don't know how they marked them, and then I don't know what they did in Tunisia.
No, like the ones in Tunisia, right?
Yeah.
The ones in Tunisia.
Yeah, someone must have went. I mean, they left a lot of the props there too. So.
They just left everything, and they didn't. They just up and left, and they never actually documented where those locations were, and they were like lost in history for 15, 20 years. And then some guy, it could have been the same guy that wrote those articles, went and he documented. He searched and searched and searched. He talked to all the locals and got all the locations of all of those scenes.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's why Star Wars is so great, because fans care that much.
Yeah,
and that's what he was. He was a Star Wars fan.
Yeah.
I also love talking about the Tunisia. When they were building the sand crawler, that one of the neighboring countries, I forget which one it was, but they were like, why are you putting all these military vehicles close to our border? What's going on?
Yeah.
And they're like, no, they're filming a movie. I promise we're not going to invade.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's remarkable what got made. When you read that stuff and you're wondering, man, how did they ever even get that made?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was crazy. So, all right, well, that's 2 questions down. Yes. We're halfway there, so we're gonna take a real quick commercial break, and then we'll be back and Zoe's going to have our next question.
This episode is brought to you by Skinny Pop Popcorn. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Oh, so light and crunchy. Skinny Pop Original Popcorn is the snack you've been searching for. Made with just 3 simple ingredients: popcorn kernels, sunflower oil, and salt. Snacking never felt or tasted so good. Perfectly popped, endlessly delicious. Give yourself permission to snack and pick up Skinny Pop Original Popcorn today.
And we're back. Hope you bought that product in that commercial, whatever it was. Mike said he's going to buy 3 of them.
Yeah,
He's really excited about it. So thanks, Mike, for supporting the show. All right, Zoe, it's your turn. What do you got for us?
So, let's say you're with someone who has never seen any Star Wars before, and then you finally get to show them something Star Wars. You have every movie and show on DVD with you, even the ones that didn't get DVD releases yet, except you forgot to bring A New Hope and The Phantom Menace, and you have no Wi-Fi, so you can't say Disney Plus. What are you going to watch with them?
All right, so I guess I'm up first. So this actually happened to me before. So I'm a teacher. I taught 4th grade for 21 years. And this one year, I guess it was just before the episode 7 came out, The Force Awakens. So Star Wars wasn't in its revival. It had been years since the prequels came out. And so I had this class that I felt like none of them were Star Wars fans. There might have been 2 or 3 kids that have seen Star Wars out of like 25. And I'm like, no, this is bad parenting. Your parents should have sat you down and watched Star Wars. So I told them the last day of school, I was going to strap them down and make them watch Star Wars. And my dilemma was, which one of the 6 should I make them watch? I mean, you could make cases to start right at the beginning with episode 4. So I didn't know what to do. So I figured the best one was my favorite one was Return of the Jedi. Because Return of the Jedi had lots of action in it. It had a good story. It had the cute teddy bear Ewoks for some of the kids who, just like the cute teddy bears. And, you could kind of watch episode 6 without seeing the others and kind of know what's going on. And even the kids that didn't like Star Wars knew that about Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. So they understood that whole final lightsaber battle. The reviews were mixed after I showed it. So I had some kids demand that they're never ever showing Star Wars, or they're never ever watching another Star Wars movie ever again. And it was really boring. But I think I made some lifelong Star Wars fans. There were some kids that said, over the summer, they watched every single Star Wars movie. I had one kid that said that first weekend they got home after the last day of school, they watched every Star Wars movie, and they still talk about Star Wars if I see them. So for me, it would be Return of the Jedi would be my opener to someone that hasn't seen Star Wars before. Rob,
Well,
your opinion?
You took my answer, so I'm done. But yeah, I also think for someone who's never seen it. Now, the funny thing is, my son is 19. His favorite movie of the Star Wars movies is the second one, is episode 2, because he loves the Darth Maul lightsaber battles and how intense and how amazing they look compared to the lightsaber battles of 4, 5, and 6. Just because of the time frame of when they were made, they were able to make such better battles and things like that. He could, not that he could care less about 4, 5, and 6, but to him, he's like, oh, whatever. They're slow and they're old. And I'm like, yeah. And I made him watch them numerous times. Like, he's a Star Wars fan, but he really loves the action that's in episode 2. So I think if it's like a younger kid, you want to try and impress them. You're going to impress them with those giant lightsaber battles in 2 and even 3. But for 90% of the people that have never seen it, I would say Return of the Jedi as well, because it is the big climax to the original 3. Of the original 3, it's the one that has the most updated special effects and graphics and all that good stuff. And even after, the digital remastering of it, which we had Mark Anthony Austin on the show, who worked at ILM, and he was Boba Fett in A New Hope when they added that scene back in with Jabba the Hutt. He was the guy walking through as Boba Fett. So
Nice.
yeah, so that's his like big claim to fame. But he did all the special effects, the digital, adding in the character, adding in the monsters, the animals, I guess, into the scenes and stuff. And he he hated it. He was like, "We're ruining this. We shouldn't be going back and doing this over and over again."
See, I like the new Tatooine. I like that when they added that.
Yeah, I thought so too. Like I thought it brought more to it. It gave it more life, and it made it a little bit better. And in my opinion, like this is what George wanted to do. He just didn't have the time or the technology to actually do it the first time.
So then make new Star Wars movies. You don't have to go back and change the classics. I'd love to see new George Lucas Star Wars movies.
I want to. Well, it was actually, if you watched all the behind the scenes stuff, it was George Lucas's wife who was the heart of those movies. That
True.
really gave it the heart and soul of those three stories. So I want to see her version of new Star Wars movies because they would be really, really good. So long story short, Return of the Jedi, for a lot of the same reasons that Tom said, it's got everything you want. It's got good versus bad. It's got good winning at the end, where Empire, you don't know what's going to happen at the end. It has Muppets. It has teddy bears destroying the bad guys. So it has all that good stuff in it. And at the end, everybody's dancing and there's fireworks and there's celebration and everybody's happy at the end. So I too would say Return of the Jedi. Let's see if Mike's sticking with the original trilogy or not. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, I'm gonna have to break from the original trilogy because I was a toss up on these, and my first go to was Solo. And then I thought about it even more, and I landed on Rogue One. And the reason I landed on Rogue One was I felt like it gave a taste for everything. Like it gave you really cool space battles.
Yeah.
It didn't give you Jedi, but it gave you Jedi adjacent characters. It gave you a heroine and a hero. It gave you the big evil Empire, and then it gave you just enough Darth Vader, like to just really show how bad he was. And I feel like that give enough that it could probably catch anyone. Like maybe I like everything in that movie. You could be like, well, I want to know more about this guy, or I want to know more about this guy. And, so that was my thought process for Rogue One.
That's a good choice. Rogue One had the best final third of any of the Star Wars movies. I mean, that last 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Was phenomenal. Even without Darth Vader coming in at the end, that just kept it up. That was the icing on the cake.
Like when they had the Hammerhead Corvettes come in and push the ion cannon, knocks out the one ship, and they had to push it. Well, there's the references right there to every movie. Like ion, Jawas have ion blasters. The Hammerhead Corvettes, I think, came up in Rebels, right, Zoe?
They were in A New Hope, but they were explained in Rebels.
Yeah, I mean those little pusher ships, all that stuff. It's just and then because I'm a costumer, if I had to pick a movie that has some of the best costumes, I'm not a big fan of the Rogue One stormtroopers because of I don't like the USB port in their stomach. But besides that, I like the looks of all their troopers. They took those old scenes from New Hope that were cut and put them in the cockpit shots of all that stuff.
Yeah, that was cool.
I think as much as the CGI is getting better, but the Tarkin was nice.
Yeah,
I mean, it wasn't off-putting like people were making it out to be. So I just think that would be mine. So
the only downfall to that movie is everything looks so good and the CGI was so good and the graphics and everything. And then if you're like a big fan and you go right from that right into A New Hope, then you go to a movie that was filmed 30, 40 years prior to it. You're like, and that would be the only thing I can see somebody who's never watched Star Wars then go, wait, you just showed me this awesome movie and now this one looks nothing like that. But this comes after that. That's when you have to explain everything to them about, when George made it and all. But yeah, I was thinking of going with either of the satellite movies, or even like Andor, the series was amazing. Like I would even like want to show them that because it has just enough Star Wars in it that you know it's Star Wars, but at the
Yep.
same time, it's so grounded that it could be just any war documentary or any war series, TV series, and you're like, oh wait, they're using blasters and not M16s or whatever, you know? So
Right. Well, and if you expanded the question, if you said, "How do you show someone who doesn't want to watch Star Wars?"
uh-huh.
That's where Andor would come
That's where
in.
Andor comes in,
Just be
exactly.
like, oh yeah, this is like Panda Brothers 3. Just watch it.
Just
You know?
watch this. Oh, you don't want to watch Star Wars? That's fine. We'll watch this show instead. It's Star Wars adjacent. You'll like it, you know, and then suddenly they're hooked and you're like, it was Star Wars all along. All right, I'm sorry. We took Mike's answer and exploded on it, and poor Zoe's stuck here.
Well, yeah.
But
So
she
now,
asked the
now it's
questions.
up to you, Zoe.
Yeah, I will say I knew a girl in high school who went to see Rogue One when it came out without having seen any of the other movies, and she had really enjoyed it. So I wouldn't have picked Rogue One, but I think that would be a good answer. My answer was actually, and it would be a little dependent, like you said, it kind of depends. If someone that maybe would be into more of an Andor, if it's like a younger kid, I might even start them on like Clone Wars or something. But my answer would be The Mandalorian, because it drops you in. You don't really need to know much else in season 1, at least. You get Mandalorian, good, stormtrooper action. You get some Force. You get cute little Grogu. So that was my answer, because I think it shows, they have the mix of some of those like obvious practical effects that have that charm of the original trilogy while still being modern, with some other technology. And I think that to me, if I couldn't pick A New Hope, because it's usually my answer, I would pick Mandalorian as a good entry point.
Yeah, I would think that a lot of kids, and I would have to, I could just go into school tomorrow and ask my kids. I would think there's a lot of kids that got into Mandalorian without seeing Star Wars at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to ask them.
Because my classroom is nothing but Star Wars posters. It's been that for 10, 15 years. But when The Mandalorian hit, kids started knowing stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I have Grogu. They have to. I have 26 Grogus in my room somewhere.
That's awesome.
So once in a while, I'll just say, "Tell me how many Grogus are in my room."
Yeah, and like the fact that I feel The Mandalorian is what really kept new Disney Plus stuff alive, because it came out and it was almost all new Star Wars stuff. Even when they had the IG unit, it wasn't IG. What's the old one?
88.
88. Yeah,
11.
it was IG. It was IG 11 instead of or vice versa. Yeah. So it was like a whole different IG unit, and there were Star Wars bad guys, Empire bad guys around, but there wasn't Darth Vader, there wasn't Luke Skywalker. And then, of course, like you said, there was a cute little Grogu that everybody fell in love with, which is the reason I think The Mandalorian has done so well versus the other Disney Plus Star Wars shows, because Grogu was such a hit. Like, how many baby Yodas were being sold before we even knew what his name was?
Yep.
On our show, Nick and I were just calling him Norman because we didn't know what his name was. So we were like, Norman. So that's a great, and I love The Mandalorian. To me, The Mandalorian, we thought we were going to get a Boba Fett series, and then we got The Mandalorian, which was the cool version of the Boba Fett series without it being Boba Fett. And then we get old dad bod Boba Fett instead of the Boba Fett that was the one that Darth Vader said, no disintegration to you, like, who is this guy? The guy that we fell in love with. Now, I did enjoy the new Boba Fett series, but I think the Mandalorian series was probably what the Boba Fett series should have been, but they did it with all new characters instead. So I agree, Zoe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good. I always looked at it as, if they wouldn't have done The Mandalorian, they would have had to do Boba Fett like that.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I would have liked that Boba Fett, but now after having The Mandalorian, I'm glad we got the other Boba Fett as well.
Right.
Because, like, I had the I mailed away for the Boba Fett. I got the
Nice.
mail order Boba Fett. And there was no series they were going to make that was going to be as good as the Boba Fett that I played with before I even saw Empire Strikes Back.
Exactly. 100%.
And I think that was a good choice of theirs to just, hey, let's just make a new character.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I think
it was a risk. It was definitely a risk.
Yeah.
But it paid off.
And
we saw, was that Chicago, Zoe, when they showed us the trailer?
Yeah, Chicago, when they first announced all the stuff for it.
The people were going nuts for it.
Oh yeah,
just for the few glimpses we got.
And I mean, like, I'm a big Star Wars Lego person, so I bought the Razor Crest. I got it for Christmas, and then like 2 episodes later, they blow it up, and I'm like, it's okay. They're gonna bring back another, and they haven't brought it back yet, and I'm like, dude.
The day they blew it up, I had just bought the Nerf blaster and the HasLab and the HasLab Razor Crest. Like the day they blew it up,
You're like, oh, yeah. I wanted to. I love watching those Lego videos where then they like drop it and they shatter it in 1,000 pieces. I was so tempted to do that, but I knew there was going to be one piece that I couldn't find when I put it back together again. And I didn't want to have the incomplete Razor Crest, so I never dropped it the way they blew it up at the end. Yeah, I love that ship. I think that's such a cool ship. All right, so we did a lot of bantering after that. So Tom, you go away with us. Take us away on the last question.
All right. So other than a lightsaber, which obviously everybody would choose, what weapon are you wielding as you make your way through the galaxy? Let's go to Robert, our host. You're up first.
So I was really thinking about this because this was a good question as well. And I'm like, what are some good things? And that's when I thought of Mando and all of the Mandalorians. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is the closest thing to a Swiss Army knife in Star Wars, in the Star Wars universe? And I was like, the Mandalorian gauntlets are the Swiss Army knife of weapons. So, some of them, they had knives in there. So when they get tied up, they can cut themselves free. Of course, you got Mando's flamethrower. I was like documenting every time he used a flamethrower, because who doesn't want a flamethrower on their wrist at all times? That's so awesome. The whistling bluebirds, like you can put anything you want into there. You can call your ship or IG-11. You can call anybody. Hey, come pick me up, whatever. So the fact that they can be built into doing anything that you want, that's what I would have. There's the Swiss Army knife of Star Wars. So that's the correct answer. We're done now. Mike, what do you got?
Well, my first answer was going to be 000, but you can't really wield 000. If I had to walk around the Star Wars universe and I only had one weapon, it would probably be 000. But to the true intent of the question, I would want a DL-44, but I would want the Han Solo modifications.
Okay.
Because I remember from, I don't know if it was the West End games or the Decipher card games or something like that they said his was like overly modified and highly illegal. So I just, and that goes back to just when I was a kid, when I first saw Star Wars, I had an old Western holster that I pretended I was Han Solo. I put string on it. I would get home from school and strap that thing on. I was way too old to be doing that, but that was, I mean, after getting beat up for playing D&D and watching Star Wars.
Well, Tom and I made a video when I first learned how to use Photoshop and the video editing and all that stuff. It was my second year teaching. We're in his backyard with sticks doing lightsabers so that I could draw lines.
He's doing the rotoscoping.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a nightmare, isn't it?
Yeah. So you don't have to worry about in this realm here of being told to do something.
This is a safe realm.
This is a safe realm. We're not going to beat you up over that, I guarantee.
But yeah, I would go with the DL-44.
Now, did you have the DL-44 for your holster?
I did not at the time. I eventually got that like when I was out of school, but I had it was a blue, all I remember is a blue Colt 45 Army issue toy gun. This was before they put orange tips on them and stuff. And I sanded everything off so it would just go into holster smooth. And it just it was just, it was dumb. I would just put it on and just walk around the house
Oh, yeah.
carrying it.
I'm sure you found a vest also that you put on as well.
I did have a vest. I think it was a cut off army shirt. I just cut the sleeves off of an
Okay.
army shirt.
There you go.
My grandpa, I had a Ford Falcon when I was
Nice.
real little. That was, we lived out in the woods, like we weren't that rich, but we had an old Ford Falcon in the backyard. It was just our jungle gym. So that was my ship. I had a Falcon.
You had a Falcon.
Ford. It was just no tires, no motor, just sitting in the backyard, and that was our jungle gym.
And that was it. You had a jungle gym. You had your own Falcon already.
I had
So
a
you were
Falcon.
non-solo.
Yeah,
Well,
'cause they-
and
go ahead.
if you watch the Solo movie, that car he's racing at the beginning, the dash, I remember specifically what a Ford Falcon instrument panel. It looks very similar to a Ford Falcon instrument panel. The Ford Falcon had round tail lights. Ours were missing. We used to use them as a foothold to climb onto the roof. We've tried this at home, kids.
Well, in the making of Solo, didn't they talk about how they wanted to make a Solo ship look like one of those 70s cars?
Yeah, they wanted it to look like a Ford Falcon or something. There was something they wanted the Ford to be representative of Harrison Ford. And that's why they picked the Ford Falcon, Harrison Ford. So I don't know if that was after the fact or before the fact, but when I saw that, it reminded me of my 65 Ford Falcon jungle gym when I was a kid.
That's awesome.
Which I think eventually got buried, so it's probably still there.
Still on the property somewhere.
Yeah. So Zoe, your last answer.
My last answer. See, I don't know if it's as practical and widely applicable, but I really like Hunter's vibro knife in The Bad Batch, and he pulls it out and it's like I just think that's so cool. And I know they have like bigger versions of, like, I know there's vibro axes and stuff, but just a knife is just awesome. So
or even in Mandalorian when Mando and Filoni's character are fighting each other and they both have the vibro knives. They're both about to stab each other.
Well, yeah, he pulls it out of the Mudhorn.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. When he killed the Mudhorn, he kills it with that, and then he pulls it out. Yeah. But yeah, like even in that, you can see it vibrating. Yeah, so they're really cool. That's a good choice. I like that, and it's also sleek and easily. You can hide it easily. There you go. Awesome. All right, so Tom, it's up to you. You got the last answer.
So originally my answer was the DL-44, but I felt that was very uncivilized. So I figured, what would I think is the coolest weapon? And to me, the coolest weapon is the Magna Guard Electro Staff, the ones that Grievous bodyguards use. Those things are pretty damn cool. When they twist them and they spin them, they're like a lightsaber, and they have its really unique sound. That sounds really cool, and it doesn't sound like a lightsaber, but it sounds similar, but it's unique from a lightsaber. So I just thought they were really neat, and I like the fact that you can use them if you were getting a battle with someone that has a lightsaber. You can actually, it kind of works like, I guess, like Beskar, or I don't know how that all works, but the lightsaber can't penetrate through that weapon.
Right.
And the ends kind of work like a lightsaber. So I thought the Electro Staff was pretty neat.
Yeah, that's a good answer as well. Well, I think we all had great answers tonight. I think all 4 answers for all 4 questions were awesome. Even though, like I said, mine are the best, but you guys came out close. It's a tie for a close second for all 3 of you. So I'll give you that. All right, so that's it. We wrapped up our show. Before we go, I like to say kind of like what's the we eat? What's I say it every time, Tom, and I forget it right now. My mind has just gone blank. The food, the wing show where they whatever, it doesn't matter. But it's it's a waste of.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
Is it Hot Ones? Is that what you mean?
Yes, thank you. Hot Ones. On Hot Ones. They always say at the end, "This is your time. Look into that camera, that camera, that camera." Mike, go ahead first. You can look into all the cameras that you have there. Plug away. Tell us all about yourself one last time.
Okay, my name is Mike Hinton. You can follow me on Mike Hinton on Facebook if you're old. Hinton Star Wars Family on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. Every Wednesday night, I do a live podcast with Ken and John called The Inflatable Falcon. We are not well scripted, and this it's not as professional as this, but we do blab on about Star Wars every week. And I also help Zoe with her show, Star Wars Geek Girl. And if you see any 501st people in Pennsylvania, I could be one of the stormtroopers. So
Awesome.
And, that's it.
Okay. Zoe, you got all the cameras are all on you now, Zoe. So go ahead to plug away everything you want to say about yourself.
Well, you can find Star Wars Geek Girl podcast on your preferred podcast platform. We're on a semi-hiatus because of some family tragedy the Prowlesses are dealing with. So keep them in your thoughts.
Yes.
But our website is starwarsgeekgirl.com. And we're also on Twitter at SWGeekGirl, and our Facebook page is Star Wars Geek Girl. And if you're looking for just me personally, you can find my Instagram and TikTok are at Spectre_5 written out, not just the number. And I'm on Twitter as at Azoeka, AHZOEKA.
And check her out on our Star Wars stories.
Yes.
Yes, and I'm on our Star Wars stories.
Does Twitter exist still? Whatever.
Oh,
whatever.
X.
X. Yeah, but I'm not making fun of you. I'm making fun of if even X is still there. I mean, X's are.
And you know what's funny? Anytime anybody says X, they have to follow it by formerly known as Twitter. Like,
yeah, no one knows.
I think everybody knows that X is Twitter.
But that was such a bad marketing thing by Elon, because it had its own language. Like, it was tweet, like everything, I think, oh no, it's not that anymore. It's now X. And you can't say, send me check out my X. It's like, what? You have an X? It doesn't make any sense. Well, awesome. Thank you guys. We're real fast. I'm going to plug the rest of our shows here on the Ears Up Network. We have Ears Up in Depth, Scraping the Vault, The Supreme Resort, and Puny Pod, which those guys talk about Marvel. So if you're like Mike and get beat up for liking every single thing possible, that is cool. You'll check out the Marvel guys and get beat up over there as well. So once again, Mike, thank you so much. Zoe, thank you so much. You guys were great. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Now, before we sign off, Rob has tasked me with coming up with an end slogan for our show. The end slogan of your other show is, go ahead, Rob, you can tell them.
We have spoken.
We have spoken. So I can't copy that one. So I've come up with a few that I need your help in deciding which one we should go with. All right. So here are the choices. Thanks for listening to Around the Dejarik Table, where you will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. There's one.
I like that.
It's time to abandon ship. Thanks for listening to Around the Dejarik Table.
That's fun.
Well, don't get all mushy on me. May the Force be with you. Thanks for listening to Around the Dejarik Table. We're the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. Around the Dejarik Table, everything you've heard about us is true. That's a Lando quote.
Oh, I like that one, yeah.
Around the Dejarik Table, this is what a reckoning sounds like. That's all I got.
I like the first one and the Lando one. Those two were good.
I like the first one a lot. I think that was my favorite.
So thanks for listening to Around the Dejarik Table, where you never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
I like that one. Or, thanks for listening, and always remember, let the Wookiee win.
That's good.
That's a good one.
That's a
good one. I like that as well. Yeah. All right.
Hopefully, hopefully not stealing that from another podcast.
Just rotate them.
Yeah, we should. All right. So for this one, since Mike came up with it, we'll use Mike's tonight, and then everybody have to listen to see which ones we use next time. So thanks for listening to Around the Dejarik Table, and don't forget, always let the Wookiee win.